Assalamualaikum guys, selamat kembali ke channel Low Effort Opinion. I'm your host Brother Zain. And hari ini kita akan mereview satu filem yang aku memang tertunggu-tunggu. One of my most anticipated film of 2026, and that movie is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Filem ini aku memang sudah lama tunggu, especially after finishing the first part. The first part, 28 Years Later, was released on June 2025 last year. To be honest, aku bukanlah orang yang mengkritik ataupun yang terlalu benci dengan the first part, because I know it is a very controversial film, especially on the second half of the film. Dia rasa macam dia bertukar plot, bertukar genre, tema, semua itu. But I was never a hater because I know dia ada sequel, dia ada 2 more films, which is why I have faith that they will continue the story and explain more as to why ending dia cliffhanger sangat macam tu. So here we are again, a year later ataupun kurang daripada itu, we got the sequel, which is Bone Temple, directed by Nia Da Costa. Aku sejujurnya agak risau sikit untuk tonton filem ini sebab pengarah ini dia tidaklah terlalu banyak dia punya portfolio in filmmaking yang film bagus-bagus, especially after watching the Marvels. That film was trash. So aku tonton The Bone Temple ini dengan mindset memang ready untuk mengkritik, because who knows, it might be worse than the first part, and I was that wrong. This film is amazing. Saya rasa film ini dia sama level with the first film. First film ya, bukan first part. The first film is 28 Days Later yang dirilis pada tahun 2002. So, tanpa banyak bercakap lagi, saya akan explain dia punya synopsis dulu, and then we get to what I like and dislike about this film. Dari awal lagi filem ini dia memang memfokuskan tentang human versus human survival, bukannya pasal zombie, which is something that I learned from my past mistake of viewing the first part. Saya ingatkan dia akan jadi typical zombie film, but turns out it was more than that. It also explores the human side of the story. So kalau korang nak tonton movie ini, I suggest you guys watch it dengan expectation yang this movie is more about human survival instead of typical classic zombie film. Usually in a zombie film, mereka akan ada cliche side plot di mana humans are the second antagonist, meanwhile the zombies are like the main antagonist. But that's not the case with this film. Movie ini mengisahkan tentang kesinambungan ending movie yang previously, di mana our main character Spike telah pun direkrut untuk menyertai satanic cult yang diketuai oleh our main antagonist for this film bernama Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. At the same time, movie ini juga mengisahkan tentang Dr. Ian Kelson dari movie yang sebelum ini, di mana dia telah menyiapkan pembinaan Bone Temple dia dan sekarang dia tengah mengkaji the true nature of the infection. And somewhere along the line, these two stories will connect into one. I really like cara mereka gabung dua story yang berbeza ini into one, sebab mereka boleh saja go with the typical plot di mana group ini dia terjumpa dengan Dr. Ian Kelson and dia mau rampas resources yang Dr. Kelson ada. But they didn't go that way. They write it very beautifully to the point where I have to appreciate the story writing. Now let's get to what I like about this film. Wow, there's so much to like about this film, but let's start off with, I like the way that they put us into the zombies perspective ataupun the infected perspective, because selama ini all we know about the virus is that mereka jadi aggressive, mereka jadi marah, jadi mereka attack everything that they see, but we never really know what they see. And thankfully in this film mereka tunjuk kepada kita the perspective of the infected, especially through one of the alpha yang bernama Samson. Dari sini, not only that we get to see the perspective of the infected, movie ini juga in a way humanizekan zombie-zombie tersebut, makes it easy for us to approach these zombies as an actual character instead of, you know, zombie biasa running around eating people. And not only that, we also get a little bit of backstory ataupun flashback dari our main zombie, the alpha Samson, sebelum dia menjadi infected by the virus. Next, aku juga suka dia punya religious symbolism and reference dalam movie ini. To be honest, the previous movie ada juga dia punya religious symbolism, imagery, reference. But in this movie, they do it more sebab kita tengah deal with this satanic Jimmy cult. Aku tak tahulah kan, orang yang beragama Christian, dia mungkin either offended or dia appreciate reference dari Bible, dari agama Christianity. But for me, I really enjoy that these elements are being put into a brief brilliant storytelling. Dalam movie ini juga we get to see the virus in a different perspective. Sebelum ini kita cuma tahu dia sebagai virus, but in this movie it is finally discovered that virus ini dia bertindak sama macam a disease that exists in real life world, and Dr. Ian Kelson are working on its cure. Ada satu scene dalam movie ini that I have to appreciate sebab dia seolah-olah macam callback to the very first film yang dirilis pada tahun 2002. Ada satu group ini mereka kena serang zombie, so they attack back, but the infected's blood ini terpercik dekat muka mereka, termasuk dalam mulut ataupun hidung ataupun mata orang itu. A few seconds later dia sendiri menjadi infected. Kepada siapa yang pernah tengok the first film, jadi mereka pun tahulah yang scene ini sama seperti scene burung gagak dalam film 28 Days Later. And I appreciate it sebab walaupun movie ini fokus lebih kepada manusia, scene ini dia remindkan kita balik betapa scary-nya virus ini kerana dia infecting people dengan begitu cepat. I also like the pacing of this movie sebab it is much better done than the previous film. Tak ada satu pun scene dalam movie ini yang rasa macam drag ataupun terlalu cepat. Everything just feels nice. And not to mention, for some reason this movie has good amount of comedy. Aku memang tak expect that this franchise will have this much comedy in its film. Maybe because it's the Jimmys, they have different color clothings and then mereka banyak personality yang berbeza. Maybe that's why they decided to include comedy to better match the characters of this film. Another thing that I didn't expect to like in this movie is watak Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. The first time I saw this character during the ending of the previous film, aku tak rasa pun dia ni macam boleh jadi seorang yang menacing, that he will be a problem to our main characters. But turns out I was proved wrong in this film. Beberapa kali dalam film ini watak Jimmy berjaya buatkan aku risau terhadap nasib main character kita, especially kalau dia hilang sabar ataupun dia marah. So props to the actor Jack O'Connell for his brilliant acting. Jimmy's cult dalam movie ini dia brutal way. Dia punya underlings dia dipanggil sebagai fingers, and Jimmy dia langsung tak kisah kalau fingers dia ini mati, especially kalau dalam proses gang initiation. To him everyone is basically replaceable. This is also one of the factor yang membuatkan kita sebagai penonton ini we feel concerned towards the safety of our main character Spike. Okay, aku nak cakap sikit tentang jump scare. Dalam movie ini dia tidak ada banyak jump scare, if I count correctly cuma ada 2 sahaja, but for some reason these 2 jump scares work for me. I admit lah aku ada sedikit flinch waktu jump scare ini. You have to understand tau, aku sudah banyak movie horror yang aku tonton, especially horror Indonesia. Sepatutnya aku sudah immune terhadap jump scare sebab aku memang dapat tahu bila dia akan berlaku. Aku dapat predict semua jump scare, but for some reason aku terkena dengan jump scares dalam filem ini. Also, one of the best part of this movie is the nostalgic ending. Sedikit spoiler sini ya. Watak Jim yang dimainkan oleh Cillian Murphy dalam filem pertama pada tahun 2002 kini kembali sekali lagi into the series. Last year aku sudah tahulah pasal ini, but for some reason when I'm watching this movie I am so invested in the story sampai aku terlupa lah. So it's nice to see that the very first main character of the franchise is finally making a comeback untuk sambung jalan cerita dia. But that's not the nostalgic ending yang aku maksudkan. The ending of the film shows our main character Spike tengah melarikan diri turun dari bukit dikejar oleh the infected lah, the zombies. Jim saw all this happening from afar, dari jauh, and the best part is the music yang dimainkan di background. Kepada siapa yang pernah tengok filem lama-lama yang sebelum ini, mereka pun tahulah ada satu soundtrack yang sudah menjadi iconic di dalam franchise ini. Seeing Jim return and then having this music playing in the background is so nostalgic to me. Not to mention they carry on the rest of this song sampai ke end credit. Dah lah dia sama way scenario macam 28 Weeks Later di mana lagu ini dimainkan waktu karakter Don dikejar zombie yang turun dari bukit sama macam Spike dalam movie ini. I really appreciate whoever's decision it is to use this soundtrack again in the franchise. If anything, sepatutnya part 1 yang sebelum ini yang guna soundtrack ini untuk menyambut comeback of the franchise after 18 years. Tapi rupa-rupanya tak. They save this soundtrack for Cillian Murphy punya big comeback. And kalau korang risau yang movie ini ending cliffhanger ke apa ke macam previous movie, don't worry, the main plot dengan cult Jimmy itu semua sudah habis. We are now moving on to a new final story. Speaking of music, music is a critical element in this movie. Even the third act of this movie, mereka rely heavily on music instead of a big final fight. And I have to give credit to Ralph Fiennes yang melakonkan watak Ian Kelson sebab dia hard carry the third act. Macam setan way dia punya performance, and I mean that quite literally. Kalau korang dah tengok movie ni, ni, korang faham lah. Okay, now let's move on to the things that I dislike about this film. Ada dua saja ya. One is from the story writing standpoint and one is from the filming standpoint. To be honest, the things yang I dislike ini mostly nitpick sahajalah because this is a very solid movie and they have one more sequel on the way, so probably one of these things will be explained or explored or expanded in the future. Okay, yang first is I dislike how ada satu survivor dalam movie ini yang berjaya melarikan diri dari cult Jimmy. Selepas dia melarikan diri, dia hilang macam tu je, gone from the story for the rest of the movie. Tidak tahu apa jadi dengan dia, so I'm hoping that we get to see her again in the final part coming soon. And the second thing that I dislike is ada satu scene dalam movie ini yang dirakamkan menggunakan fish eye lens. Kalau tak silap, fish eye lens ni kan dia round, so it's like karakter yang dekat tepi-tepi yang paling hujung dekat dalam frame itu mereka akan distorted, mereka punya body shape akan misshapen, akan warp, and this is basically how they look like in that one particular scene. Aku rasa macam this is one of the most unnecessary filming technique. Lagipun korang boleh je guna regular camera ataupun regular lens and then you guys back up a little bit to fit everyone into one frame, but for some reason they decided to use fish eye lens, maybe for the gimmick or maybe they do this because they want to replicate some of that feeling from the previous movie. In case you don't know, movie yang sebelum ini mereka merakam mostly menggunakan iPhone 15 kalau tak silap saya, but this film they are using like professional actual camera. Mungkin penggunaan fisheye lens ini hanyalah untuk replicate the grounded cinematic shot from the previous film into this movie. Other than that, I think that's it. That's the only thing that I can find yang aku rasa macam worth the critic about this movie. I genuinely enjoy this movie. I find it to be great. I find it to be enjoyable. Aku masuk dalam wayang memang ada niat untuk criticize movie ini because I thought it was going to be worse than the previous one, even though I look forward to it very much. And this movie really surprised me. Aku tak expect movie zombie akan menjadi unik macam inilah sebab this is a very unique take on the zombie apocalypse genre, but also they give us brilliant storytelling and making zombie movies fun again. Tapi sejujurnya lah, aku ada rasa risau sikit for the next movie because this movie, it has raised a high bar for the next movie to compete and to go over. Sama case macam Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy lah. The second movie is so good and then the third movie, it doesn't meet the expectation of the previous one and it became like lackluster lah for all the fans. So that is it for the review of The Bone Temple. This is a very solid movie, a solid sequel. I cannot wait for the final part next year if I'm not mistaken. Tidak tahulah bila dia akan release. But as for this movie, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. By the way, aku tak nak korang fikir yang aku ni mudah nak bagi movie 10 out of 10 ya. Basically, this year aku tak tahulah what's up with the 2026 punya air kan. Every movie released so far is so good. So, they deserve the 10 out of 10. Aku bukan jenis mudah ya nak bagi 10/10. Most of the movie that I watch, I probably just give it around 7.5 or something. But this year, the movie started out strong. So, let's see for the next few months, for the rest of the year. Let's see how much more movie can reach the 10 out of 10 rating. Itu sahaja guys for the review of this film. Thank you so much for watching my video. Apa pendapat korang guys? Comment, like, and subscribe. That will help me out a lot. It's been your host, Brother Zain, and I'm out. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace out.
When the infected attack, what do they see?
Try me, bitch.